appreciate everybody. We have a pretty full house today, which I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, Senator Marlatt and Speaker Hickman, but we will shortly see. A lot of things going on at Northwestern. We are winding down the semester, about, I guess, 3 weeks left at this point till graduation. We've had just a lot, as I said, a lot of things going on, just some noteworthy things. Of course, we're in our spring sports. We just found out our women's rodeo team is ranked #1 in the region with, I think, maybe 1 rodeo left, which probably means the whole team, that women's team, will go to Casper to the college national finals. Our men, I think, are setting either 3rd or 4th, so probably some individual members will get to go. Dr. Lemon and I were at Oklahoma City last night for what's called the Governor's Cup, which is a business plan competition that's all across higher education, both privates, community colleges, regionals, and the research institutions. And this is the first year we have ever entered a team, and our team made it to the finals, one of 6 in the finals, did not place. But we had 2 young ladies that represented Northwestern very, very well. The kind of ironic thing to me we talked about is these 2 young ladies are from California here, and so kind of reverse Okie, but just did an outstanding job, and so we're hoping that will spur some interest in that particular type of competition. So a lot of things going on. I think we have a choir concert coming up next week that's in the old armory, which should be very interesting. So if you haven't heard our choirs, you really need to take advantage of that. You will love them. They do a great job. So
we've had an eventful week coming off of, and it's still going on. We still have guides and guest hunters out hunting this morning. We had our Lieutenant Governor's turkey hunt dinner last night, and we had over 24 companies here. So they're still out and about, and it was a very successful event. The Red Velvet Cake Wars is at the Act One Theater this weekend, so if you haven't bought your tickets, do so. Later this week, next week, the Northwest Oklahoma Alliance Workforce Committee will be here to tour VAP, so we're pretty excited about that. I think we've got some guests with us here this morning that I'd like to introduce. Luke Doan, who is running for state representative. Thank you for being here. And I have to give a big shout out to our Health to Others students from Alva High School and all high school, right, today?
Just these are the officers.
Okay, the officers are here with us today. They helped us last night with our Lieutenant Governor's turkey hunt dinner, and we were there pretty late, and they're here this morning, so let's give them a big round of applause. And I see Dr. Digital is here. I'm going to introduce him. Aaron Fuller is our newest chamber member. We had a ribbon cutting for him last week, so thanks for being here this morning. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Speaker Hickman and Senator Bryce Marlatt to speak with us this morning. Speaker Hickman said last night it's kind of the last of the last for him. And we're certainly thankful for all you've done over the last couple of years, and thank you for your continued service to us. So I will let you guys, flip a coin to see who speaks first.
Since about 6, so we'll let him go.
Okay.
I'll just touch on a few things. I don't know what everybody's paying attention to. We had a lively debate last night, I guess. I just got to see some highlights for the Democrat presidential debate. So that looks like it's getting pretty interesting. The love fest that was going on there for a while is no longer, and they started looking like a lot of Republican candidates when they were yelling at each other during the debates. But none of that happens in the state legislature. Never any yelling or anything like that back and forth, unless you're on the House floor, and then sometimes those guys get a little bit excited. And actually, that's changed quite a bit lately, hasn't it?
We sent them all to you.
they're doing that in caucus now. But anyway, obviously the budget is a big deal. Everybody knows that we're working through that. Governor threw a proposal out there this week. Appreciate her work on that, and appreciate any input that we can get on the budget. However, that budget was not something that we thought was really the core direction where we want to go when you're talking about $750 million worth of bonding to fill a gap and lots of different revenue raising measures. We feel like there's got to be some structural changes in how we reform on how we do our budget, and just borrowing, getting a cash advance on a credit card to fill a gap really sets a big hole for the next legislature coming in. I appreciate the leadership that's going out, not wanting to put us in a situation like that. So there's a lot of opportunities out there as far as reforms on apportionments and different things like that we can do to actually have some structural changes. There's been a bright spot in the revenue. We actually had March collections were up right at 1% of what they expected. So it's nothing to get do somersaults over yet, but it's a step. It's a move in the right direction, and hopefully that trend will continue. As far as the budget process, we get a lot of people saying, and different associations coming out and saying there's no. And I think that was a lot of what the governor's thoughts were, is we need to throw something out there so people know that we are working on something. But when you look at the reforms that we're talking about, apportionment reforms, tax credit reforms, different things like that, you don't have to see individual bills out there right now, because that'll be, excuse me, that'll be a part of the overall budget. We can do all that at the end when we come up with agreement. But when you look at the budget process that's going on now in the House and the Senate, I've never seen it work better. To tell you the truth, we've got on the Senate side. We are meeting weekly as a caucus, multi-times a week. We've got small group meetings going on where we've got a package of about 5 to 7 members who will go in and meet with the appropriations chair, vice chair, and our finance chairman, and share with them what they've been doing that week, come up with ideas, exchange ideas. Our subcommittee meetings, chairman on appropriations, are all meeting a couple of times a week. And then the House and Senate are meeting at least 3 times a week now as things move forward. And I think within a couple of weeks, we'll, I think we're getting pretty close. A couple of weeks, hopefully we'll have something that we'll be able to vote on. And I think we're really ahead of schedule. I don't think we've ever had a budget announced before late May. So we're ahead of schedule. The work that's been going on in the budget, regardless of what people say, obviously they're not spending time in the hallways of the Capitol, because that is the number one talk that people are talking about, and it is the focus of both the House and Senate. And I've never seen the process work better and more inclusive than what I have this year. So the associations that say that, or anybody who says that, is not telling you the truth. It's very disingenuous. I can throw out all kinds of different numbers as far as what we've done to defend where we're at and how we got to where we're at. But the fact is, we are where we're at, and we need to deal with it. We need to deal with it and move forward. We have, I think, made some tremendous changes that a lot of people don't talk about. One of them, the teacher retirement system. We put in $300 million a year for the past 3 years. That teacher retirement system was grossly underfunded. It was the most unfunded liability we had in the state when I came into office, and everybody knew that. We made changes in 2011, I believe, to address teacher retirement system, and we thought that we would have that solvent by 2032, based off of the changes that we made. And last time I checked, we're about 7 years ahead of schedule as far as when that would be totally funded. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. You know, roads and bridges, the investment we made on that, we turned the corner on our deficient bridges. But you don't make a change and then everything happen overnight. It takes time. We're starting to see a lot of the things that we have done that we're having to invest in because there was lack of investment for years and years, that we're just now starting to see things turn the right direction. Once we get things, you know, teacher retirement system funded, once we get these things rolling, it will free up money to give us a little more flexibility in how we appropriate dollars. Filing time, everybody is aware of that. There's a teacher caucus. You know, I've gotten several calls. What do you think about the teacher caucus? There's reportedly 30 to 40 teachers that are going to the Capitol or that did go to the Capitol to file for office, and I think it's great. Teaching is a calling, much like public service is a calling. We need all people involved who want to help, who want to be engaged, and who have something to offer. I don't look at this as a bad thing. The media kept asking me like it was, you know, something alarming, and I'm like, it's fantastic. You know, we've got several teachers in the legislature now, and if the people want to send more, then that's fantastic as well. But I don't think that it's something that is something that's a huge deal as far as something that's uncommon. We have several teachers in the legislature now. We have several teachers, retired teachers, who run every election cycle. They just typically don't get together and file at the same time. But with that being said, I'll turn it over to the speaker. I know that you guys are probably tired because of the Lieutenant Governor's turkey hunt. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I didn't get to leave the city last night until about 7:30, and forgot to text my wife, and she texted me and said, "Where you at?" I said, "Leaving the city," and she's like, "Why didn't you let me know?" And I said, "You text message." I looked at it and I never pushed send, so she's not gonna believe that. But anyway, we had some meetings late, and we didn't end up getting out of there until 7. So I didn't get back to Woodward in time. But I hope it's a successful year and everybody gets a bird. And how many hunters do you have, Alex?
We have 24 groups, and then their employees, so it was an amazing turnout.
All right. Well, I apologize for not being here for that, but I know you guys will have a successful year, and hopefully everybody gets a bird. But Speaker?
Well, the punishment for not being here was you had to come 15 minutes early.
Right.
Alex, last night at 11 o'clock, we were finishing visiting with some of the guests. This is the first year I've gotten to stay, didn't have to head on down the road. She said, "Well, we don't really start till 8:15, so since you were here this late, you don't need to come till 8:15. So I got rewarded. Wait.
Fantastic.
Senator, thank you.
Be at the turkey hunt.
Yes.
Incentive.
Now, this is your last time to run too, so you'll be fine. And thank you, by the way, for your willingness to serve another term. And these are challenging times, really challenging times like we've never seen in our state economically. Other times have been difficult for different reasons, and the reasons things were different as well. But in terms of the state revenue and the percentage and all of that, we've never seen a time like this in our state. And I have 7 months left, and I'm out of there. And Senator Marlatt did not have to sign back up, and he's willing to do that. And I appreciate that very much, and the work that he's done there the last 8 years. So thank you, Bryce, for what you're doing. Today is the final day for filing. We'll probably have around 30 members of the House that will be new next session, and that's depending on the outcome of elections as well. But there are right around almost 30 that either are term limited and can't come back. About 19, I think, that have reached the end of their term, and then another 9 or 10 that have chosen not to re-enlist and not to file for re-election. And so that's a significant number. It's almost as many as what we had when I was elected in 2004 when term limits went into effect for the first time. You had so many open seats. So it will be a very different legislature, and I think it's about a fourth of the Senate too, I believe, isn't it, Senator, that aren't going to be back, term limits or other things.
Yes, 12. There's 12 term limits.
12 out of the 48. So it will be a very different legislature a year from now. A lot of people that have been there a long time that are finishing their terms or leaving office, and that will be interesting and obviously challenging for groups around the state to build those new relationships and the knowledge base of legislators of all of the different issues and agencies and challenges that we face, because every day is not just something different, but several things different. It's amazing the different issues and items that we're working on each and every day. And if only we could just focus on one issue, it would be amazing what you could get done. But it's just incredible the amount of things that legislators work on. And so to have that many new members will be a challenge. Chief is not here, but I wanted to once again thank and congratulate our firefighters here in Alva and Woods County and Northwest Oklahoma, and so many of our friends in surrounding states that I've met the last couple of weeks as well. Had an opportunity to go out with Chief Treacle. I think it was the Friday night of the first fire, and spent some time at the command post and out at the fire, and just it was incredible. And by then, things were a lot more under control than they had been early on. But phenomenal job. And I visited with one of the folks from the Texas Forestry Service that was here. One of their higher ups had come up to help, and was asking him just different things about the fire and them coming to assist us. And I said, no, we're making great progress here in Oklahoma. I assume the Kansas fire is about under control as well. And he said, no, it's burning out of control. And I said, well, what's the difference? Is the terrain a little different? Is it burned across the state line? Did it get into some different terrain? Was the fuel load different? The grass is different? What? He said, no, it's really all the same. It's really the same terrain. It's really the same fuel load. And he said, really the difference is that Oklahoma has equipped your firefighters with the equipment they need to do the job, the training they need to do the job. And he said the other thing is they work really well together. He said the counties work well together. When a fire gets to a county line, they don't stop. They continue. They don't have these border wars and other things. They just do what has to be done. And I said, you're telling me our fire is almost under control. The one in Kansas is out of control, and the only difference is people and equipment. He said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And that is a testament of people from Northwest Oklahoma, people from across our state, and the commitment that we have made to public safety. And to hear that from someone from out of state, an expert is someone from out of town with a briefcase, right? To hear that from someone out of state who had no reason to share that with me really made me feel good about where we are, but made me incredibly proud of the people in Northwest Oklahoma and the job they do as volunteers, mostly a few professionals and mostly volunteer firefighters. And just an incredible process that this community's gone through, rallying around and providing whatever was needed, and it makes you really proud to know that. Department of Agriculture, great job, and that's kind of where our interaction was, and making sure that we had the aircraft and other things up here. Senator Marlatt and I were in regular contact with Secretary Reese and making sure those resources were here, and they were, thank goodness. But when you get a wind, severe thunderstorm type winds or hurricane winds and a fire, there's not a lot you can do. And fortunately, we didn't have any fatalities or severe injuries. So, but hats off to those that were involved in that as well. It has been an interesting legislative session. It's really the first time in 12 years, and I think there's just so much angst with the economy and the layoffs and just where we are as a state right now with our economy, that it's the first time in 12 years that I haven't been able to keep up with responding to emails and phone calls. It's amazing just literally hundreds and hundreds each day. some form letters, some direct, and they all get mixed in. And I get them and I see them and don't often get to respond. You know, Dr. Loma will send me an email, or Candace will send me an email, or President Cunningham, or a text message or a message. But it's just incredible, the volume that's out there. And what is frustrating is the stuff from your district gets mixed in with all the form letters from the different unions and other groups that they send. But there's just a great deal of interest and angst. And when you have 15,000 people that have lost their jobs, I mean, and a lot of them in our part of the state, our friends and neighbors, it's very concerning, and it has an impact on our entire state budget. I mean, 15,000 people suddenly had great jobs and aren't paying income tax every month out of their check because they're not working any longer. They don't have the disposable income to go buy a new pickup and pay motor vehicle tax, or they're not buying things at retailers and paying sales tax. It impacts every area. Mineral owners' income goes down. That impacts our income tax. It's just amazing. A lot of people focus in on gross production tax revenue. That's such a small part of the equation because our economy is so tied to oil and gas. And I'm preaching to the choir because our economy here tied even more to oil and gas than most of the state, and we're living through it. And our hope is those prices come back up and these companies survive, and the jobs return and good times return both for Oklahoma and for our state. So really a lot of angst, and we realize that. The senator mentioned the number of educators that were filing. I thought that was interesting, which is, again, anyone can run for office, but I went and looked, and we have 13 teachers currently in the House of Representatives. 13 out of 100, so 13% of the House is made up of teachers, former teachers, retired teachers, but people from K through 12 schools, 13%. When you look at 42,000 teachers out of 1.6 million working Oklahomans, it's about 2% of the workforce. So the legislature and the House, already 13% are teachers, and so they are very well represented in the House already. I think there's some misconceptions on what's been going on, but it'll be great to have elections and choices and to see where all of this takes us over the course of the next several months with elections. The senator mentioned we did get some good budget news this week, which was you'd rather be up a little bit than down a little bit or down a lot like we have been lately, and that was great news this week to have the revenue collections be up a little bit as well. On the topic of education, the governor signed a measure this week, that for whatever reason had kind of been under the radar. It had a Democrat authored version in the House and Senator Jolly in the Senate, but it allows schools to deregulate from a lot of the mandates that charter schools are exempt from. There were 3 or 4 bills out there, a couple that got attention, but this one by Representative Virgin, a Democrat from Norman, didn't get a lot of attention, and passed overwhelmingly in the House and Senate and went to the governor's office. But it really does give some flexibility to our school districts on things that charter schools or public charter schools are already exempt from. The governor signed that bill this week. Districts will be able, by school, to create what's called a conversion school, and they would be able to access all the flexibilities that the charter schools currently have. The difference, and this is what was really interesting in this bill by one of our Democrat members, it allows the school board to make these changes. The bill that got a lot of attention that the Senate sent over to us, the school board made the changes, but 50% of the teachers would have to approve the plan to deregulate. And there was a lot of opposition to that, and this one didn't get any opposition, and there's not any input at all from teachers. So it was really, it's really strange how things take on a life of their own for different reasons, and to see what gets there and why. But that bill was signed by the governor this week to give our schools some more flexibility as well. Autism bill is working its way through the process to provide autism coverage through insurance. Cattle rustling bill that started in the House, the Senate passed that. And that is headed to the governor's desk as well. That increases the fine for theft of livestock and implements as well to 3 times the value of the animals or machinery not to exceed $500,000. Gives DAs a little more ability to prosecute cattle rustlers, and so an important issue there, because really where the cattle market has gone, the investment people have, and to lose those to someone pulling up and loading them up and stealing them is obviously a difficult issue. Let me mention just a couple of other issues, and then we'll be happy to take questions. But I want to talk a little bit about where we are on criminal justice reform. We've had an incredible effort this session working on criminal justice reform and the crisis we continue to have in our prison system. We have a new director who's doing a great job of trying to sort out that mess. Of course, he's the former director of FEMA in Washington and is really working hard to help us fix a real crisis. And I greatly appreciate, and I know the warden does as well, that we have a member of the State Board of Corrections who lives here in Alva, and Todd Holder is here this morning. When you have an agency in crisis and you have people that are willing to show up to help with the crisis, who have plenty to do, by the way, at home with their own businesses and in their own communities, it really is incredibly helpful to have the input of people that get it, that are smart, and that are looking for solutions. And Todd, thank you for your service on that state board. It's great to have someone from our part of the state on that state board. I have a couple of bills that we passed the House. They're over in the Senate. One of them, on the flip side, there's been a lot of work on trying to use the parole board more to parole more inmates toward the end of their sentence. We have a lot of inmates that are serving for 85% crimes, require them to serve 85% of their sentence, and that list of things that are 85% crimes is a very long list, primarily violent crimes, but not probably entirely, but it's a long list. And so there's a lot of people that are there that have to serve 85% of their sentence. But what happens is when they get to that 85%, instead of asking for a parole hearing, they decline the parole hearing, because if you go to the parole hearing, you're probably going to get supervised when you get out. There's going to be probably an order that you can be released, but you're going to be accountable to someone. So they don't do that, so that when they leave, they leave. They walk out the gate and they're not accountable to anyone. We've got a requirement that those that are 85% offenders would automatically go on the parole docket. It would not be an option, and would guarantee supervision for these offenders when they leave, which I think is a key part. Obviously, something has to be funded, but in terms of public safety, to just be releasing these people with no accountability is a bit concerning, obviously. Another bill that I sent over to the Senate that they're working through now creates a method by which the fees that an inmate owes when they leave prison would be reduced by 0.75% for every 30 days that it's served. Some incentive, hopefully, for our district attorneys and our courts to not give people sentences longer than what they really need. And also a real resource. The greatest challenge that a lot of these inmates face is they leave prison owing more money than they'll ever be able to pay. I mean, they leave there with this incredible list of things that they owe. And they're leaving and trying to find a job and trying to find a place to live and trying to get their driver's license and all of these things. And they have this long list, and there really gets to be a point if that number is so big that they just give up. They don't even pay a little bit on it. They just give up. This plan allows some payment plans, the courts to be able to set up some payment plans. It gives inmates a little more time before they have to start paying. It gives them a period of I think about 6 months of grace when they come out before they have to start paying, and then they can go to the court, and if they show the court they still aren't in a position to be able to pay back, they can. The reason that's important is that what happens is they get out, they get a month or two behind, a warrant gets issued for their arrest because they haven't paid, and then they end up right back into the system. Their parole is revoked, or they end up right back in the system because they didn't have the money to pay, when we've set them up to be in a position where they wouldn't have been able to be successful. And so some reforms there that I think are important, some concern obviously by the court, but the truth is the court's not getting this money anyway. When they don't pay, they get nothing. And so to at least get some of this and have some type of payment plan, we believe makes some sense. There's some other measures that are working their way through to give DAs more discretion on filing some charges as misdemeanor driver's license, so they can get to work and make money so that they can pay those things back. It's just amazing some of the things that get set up in the system that really don't make sense when you stop and think about it, and we just continue this cycle of people leaving prison and not being able to be successful. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the Insure Oklahoma plan that we are working on. There was a lot of talk initially. School districts were claiming that they were going to have 15 to 20% budget cuts, which was never realistic, and nothing in the track record that would lead you to believe that schools would be cut at that level. Schools have always been the top priority. Education is 51% of our budget. 35% of it is pre-K through 12th grade schools alone. So the biggest chunk of our budget is going to those areas now. And so the thought that we would have huge cuts on education was just not realistic. And in fact, the House is taking the position that even with $1.3 billion less to build our budget than what we had last year, that the cuts to our pre-K through 12th grade schools will not be greater than 5%. And that hopefully allows them to plan and for people to not be making these extreme decisions because they're claiming they're going to be cut 20%. Last year, we had $611 million less to build our budget than the year before as we started into this oil bust. We didn't cut schools a penny. Their budget was held flat, contrary to a popular belief out there on social media. Their budgets were held flat. And the year before that, we cut other agencies even more so we could increase funding to schools, $145 million. And so it is a priority. It's where the dollars are going. And our other agencies, frankly, have paid the price. 51% of your budget is education in terms of higher ed, career tech, common ed, the biggest part being common ed. That means all other agencies of the state, every other one, dozens and dozens more, operate off the other 49%. That's their budget share. And they have taken cuts, some of them around 25 to 30% cuts since 2007, so that more money could go into education. And those agencies are ones that have, those state employees have frankly paid that price so that we could invest in our priority areas. But it's because it's important, and I think it's important for you all to know as taxpayers how your dollars are being invested, particularly when it's maybe contrary to popular belief. Moving into healthcare, the Healthcare Authority has announced that if their budget is reduced for next year by 15%, they will have to make 25% provider rate cuts. And that's very true. If that happens, they will have to make 25% reductions in their provider rates for Medicaid, which is a lot of patients that use our rural hospitals, rural healthcare facilities, nursing homes, and other things. And that is just unacceptable. That can't happen. It would crash our healthcare system. It's not going to happen. The Healthcare Authority is another one that has been a priority. Our Medicaid numbers have been growing really because of what's going on in our economy the last few years. And that's obviously something that can't happen. The Healthcare Authority said if they had a 5% reduction, their provider rate cuts would be 15%. Our hope is that with the Insure Oklahoma plan that has been proposed, that we can hopefully get the votes to do that, get the dollars necessary to fund it, hopefully through some tax credit reform, rather than some different tax increases on hospitals and insurance, other things that have been suggested. There's some tax credits that I think could be eliminated both on low-income and high-income earners and be able to fund that program. But what that program does, it doesn't expand Medicaid. It actually takes 175,000 people off of our state Medicaid rolls and moves them to private insurance. It takes 175,000 people who don't have insurance and moves them into private insurance as well. They would buy that through the exchange from private insurance companies or directly from private insurance companies. And so it would dramatically change the situation for 175,000 people who aren't insured and dramatically change things for 175,000 people who are on Medicaid now who will be able to go into the private market and be able to buy insurance. Allows us to stabilize our provider rates for hospitals and nursing homes and providers, which is obviously very critical. And our hope is that we can get that done. If we lose our rural hospitals, I think we all know that it's really the tough situation a lot of our rural hospitals are in. The chance of getting those back is really slim and none, and we're to that point where we have to do something. And so I believe if we can figure out a way to pay for it, an agreement on how to pay for it, it's about $100 million that the state would have to fund at this plan. If we can figure out a way to pay for it, even in a budget year like this, it's one of the most critical issues that we're facing right now is what's going on in healthcare, particularly access and keeping hospitals open. And so that's an issue that, again, I think it's a great reform. It's moving people actually off of Medicaid instead of what other states have done, which is expanding Medicaid, putting more people in private insurance. But having more people insured only helps our healthcare providers in making sure that they're getting the revenue for the services that they provide. So we'll continue to work through that, and that's the challenging part of being in the legislature, particularly being in the House with 101 members. I don't have the luxury of just throwing out ideas and hoping that it all works. I have to build consensus. The Senate has to do the same thing, but in the House, I have to have 50 other people agree with me to pass something off the House floor. It takes 51 votes to do something, and that's a big part of the challenge. It's that's not an easy task, and it's not as easy as just throwing out ideas and hoping they happen. If they don't, say, well, gosh, I tried to tell you, which is what our counterparts in the legislature do frequently. It's a challenge, but we have members more engaged than I've ever seen them. As the senator mentioned, been working even months leading up to this session, knowing that we were in this economic situation as a state. And an incredible amount of work has been done looking at all of the different options. And I think you'll see, as the senator mentioned, a budget roll out much earlier than normal. Usually that happens in late May. And my guess is within the next 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully, if we can pull all this together, 2 or 3 weeks ahead of schedule, that we will have a budget come out as well. There's only one time in the 12 years I've been there we've had a budget earlier. We had one in late March, early April that we passed, and Governor Henry vetoed it, and so we end up back at late May again. That's the only time I think that we've had a budget earlier than late May. But I think it'll happen this year, and it needs to happen for our agencies too. The House is not just 101 members. I'm responsible for about a $16 million budget, 109 full-time staff members, 69 part-time staff members, and I've taken about $1 million cut in our budget as well. And so there were a couple of Thursdays that the House was not in session, not because we didn't want to be, not because everybody wanted a day off, because I needed to save about $75,000 for those 2 days in our budget. It was a financial reason for the House. And we saved about $75,000 and reduced what we're paying our members as well through that by not having those expenses. But everyone is dealing with this, including our agencies, and that's why it would be good for us to finish a couple of weeks early to also save money for the House and Senate budgets, which ultimately saves taxpayer dollars that can go into other places. So I'll stop there, and we'll be happy to answer some questions.
It's amazing. I got 1187. I got a million phone calls, articles written bad about me, and got called disgusting, all kinds of stuff about the called the Teacher Empowerment or the local School District Empowerment Act, and it was, and then this other bill we're talking about flies right through it. So
And that bill that I mentioned, it passed the House 76-19. The 19 votes against it actually were all Republicans. There weren't any Democrats who voted against the bill. It passed the Senate with no votes at all. No one voted against it in the Senate, and it's an interesting place sometimes to see what transpires, how things move through the process. You guys are letting us. Thank you all very much.
Well, beyond the things that you mentioned about criminal justice reform, is there a bigger group that is looking at long-range criminal justice reform that will not just start this session but will continue into the next session? We've had that in years past, and they would get some momentum and then it fell apart. And is any beyond the legislature, outside stakeholders, sheriffs?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of different things that are going on. In 2013, I think is when we passed the original Justice Reinvestment Initiative. We got it on the books, but didn't get agreement between the governor's office and the legislature to fund some of those things. So those things are still on the books. There's some great reforms there that we can get the dollars to fund them that will be, I think, very critical in the future. Intermediate revocation facilities, one of the key things that we've passed into law in Oklahoma we've never been able to fund. But when someone violates the terms of their release, rather than pulling them back in the system and locking them up for another 5 years or to finish their sentence, we have a provision on the books. We just haven't been able to fund a facility to pull them back in for 6 weeks or 6 months, maybe if they need drug treatment, if they violated their parole because of drugs, or they need alcohol counseling, or whatever it is, to pull them in, address the problem, and then move them back out again, rather than just warehousing them again for 5 years. It's on the books. We just never had the money, or an empty facility, because we don't have any empty facilities. All of our facilities are 120% of capacity. We haven't been able to do that. Great reform. 122 today. Thank you. I usually say 125, and the governor asked me why I'm so high. But anyway.
Not to mention the investment on, I haven't been down there, but I've asked the center to go down to McAllister. Not to mention the infrastructure problems that we've got as far as facilities. be another investment. I mean, we're working on the speaker, and I did the lawn on the Capitol. Never should have had to have done that, really. Not at the levels we're having to. Probably going to be another one coming. We're working on that one as well. But you know, we forget about all of our other facilities that we have that haven't been maintained accordingly. We're going to have to get caught up on those. My understanding, McAllister's really bad.
Yeah. And there's a couple of different groups, justice reform groups that are national groups that are in. We're working with the Pew Foundation. They're doing some work to begin some studies to analyze our system and make some recommendations. So that's good news. And there's also a group in Oklahoma that's working together on some ballot initiatives. If some of these things don't move to the legislature, we're actually trying to do a petition drive and put some things on the ballot in terms of state questions. If there's not the votes to do some of the reforms in the legislature. And so there's a lot of different things that are going on and out there. I had I had a person from Washington in my office with 2 lobbyists that organization had hired, wanting, just came in and said, what can we do to help? What can we do to work on criminal justice reform in your state? It's a group that is funded jointly by the Koch brothers out of Kansas, far right conservative groups, and the ACLU, about as far left as you can get, that have come together, and they've brought in other similar people from diverse political backgrounds that are working on that issue. And they have a national organization and have lobbyists that they've hired to work on these issues too. So it's really interesting to see, really across the political spectrum. I mean, to get the Koch brothers and the ACLU working together on an issue is really, I mean, that really is telling about some of these issues that they're working on. So there's a lot of different things going on out there. My hope is it all comes together and Senator Marlatt's able to fix it in the next few years.
No pressure. I do want to say, I guess I didn't really realize it was your last one here.
Are we having any more of these, or is this it?
You guys can join us for a wrap-up in June if you'd like. We've
You'll be
done that
campaigning.
before.
I'll probably be on the tractor down south of town.
So, well, that's what it's up to you guys.
It's the farewell tour.
I don't mind doing it. But I do want to say Jeff has done a tremendous job. He's a pleasure to work with. I always tease that he'd be one hell of a guy to get where he's at. He's done a tremendous job, and he's been a great speaker. We're really going to miss having your leadership at the Capitol, and appreciate your service. I know it's not easy, and I know it's not easy on Janice, but and for the kids sometimes. But we appreciate your willingness to do that. You've done a tremendous job.
It's been a privilege. I was kind of at a loss for words last night at the turkey hunt dinner. Some of the comments that were made, but to think that a kid that grew up with the Rialto and eating Taco Village food could get to be the Speaker of the House it's really pretty amazing. And I wouldn't have that opportunity if it weren't for all of you. And thank you very, very much.
You still look the same, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't aged a bit in 12 years. I don't know if it's teenage daughters or it's the legislature that causes the aging process. But it is, and Senator Marlatt knows this, having children at home, you miss out on a lot of things. For those, our members that don't live in Oklahoma City and able to go home every night, you miss a lot of things, and it's tough on your families. And I appreciate all of our members from around the state that make that sacrifice and get to serve and take the beatings on Facebook and email and everything else that they do. There's a lot of good people down there. There's some people that we'd lay off for budget reasons if we could in the House and Senate, wouldn't we? There'd be a list.
Yes.
But there's really, by and large, a lot of people that are there for the right reasons and they care about Oklahoma. We may disagree about how you get there, but really care about Oklahoma. It's been a real privilege to get to represent what we think. We're biased, but I think we're right. They're really the most special part of the state, and that's because of the people. It's really the people that make this a special part of the state. And we're honored to get to do what we do.
I want to say one other thing. We had Alva at the Capitol for Alva girls basketball, and we have in my district, is it 5 or 6?
5 of the 7 were from Northwest Oklahoma.
I know
Four of the five
I know
from your
4 of them
district.
are in my district.
Yeah.
The girls' state championship basketball team, 4 of them. And so whenever we're parading them on the floor all the time, they're like, "My gosh, what do you guys have a group here all the time?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, the ball goes through Northwest Oklahoma all the time on basketball." But and then we've got, you know, I've got a couple other groups. But I tell you what, it's really fun when you're up there, when you get to showcase your students, and then when you get such good people who are involved in the Capitol. We have more people come to the Capitol from our districts than the people who live, you know, 10 miles from there. It's amazing, and they always comment on it. But whenever we've got our young people up there and we're able to showcase them and what our community, what kind of support our communities have for our schools and for our students, it's a testament. And of the I know Woodward and Alva both. Woodward was state champions in basketball and academic state champions. I don't know what their GPA was exactly. And Alva was like 1,000, or Fairview, I'm sorry, was 1,000th of a point away from being state champion in both as well. So it's funny how it coincides with not just the athletics but the academics, and that's because, you know, not only just community and parental support. So people really are aware that we've got a little different thing going out here than the rest of the state when it comes to community involvement and in our schools.
They keep asking us about our boys, though. Bringing these girls teams, I'm like, look at your boys, do they play sports? They do. They're here every once in a while as well. But incredible year for girls basketball. 5 of the 7 from Northwest Oklahoma, and 3 in one day. Woodward, Alva, and Fairview, all 3 to win in one day. And it's a privilege for us to get to show off. They always look sharp, and they always are kind and polite, and it should make all of you proud of how you're represented when the people are proud. I know everyone likes to worry about who beat who in football in 1974 and this basketball score from 1980 or whatever it was. But the truth is, by and large, in Northwest Oklahoma, we're so fortunate to have good schools. The time that we have to spend talking about education, if every school in the state was like those in Northwest Oklahoma, we wouldn't have to spend any time talking about how we improve education in Oklahoma. There's a lot of children in our state that don't have access to schools like we have in places like Alva and Fairview and Cherokee and Woodward and our communities in Northwest Oklahoma, and it shows when those groups come to the Capitol. And we'd all love for every student to have access to schools like we have in Northwest Oklahoma, and have the family support, community support that our schools do. But it doesn't exist. We take it for granted here in Northwest Oklahoma. And everyone likes to compete, but the truth is, by and large, I'd put our schools up against any of the rest of the state, and really wish that all corners of our state were like us, because they aren't. Not all communities, in fact, a lot don't have access to education opportunities like we do in Northwest Oklahoma. We're really somewhat spoiled. We really take it for granted and how fortunate we are, and that the rest of the state doesn't particularly enjoy the same level. There's a few here and there, but truly, as across the board, good opportunities everywhere you look. It really is Northwest Oklahoma. Thank you all very much for coming. Good to see you.